Hi, everybody. It's Yanange here, and I have so many things to talk about. Um, I hope to keep this short, but maybe not. Anyway, I woke up this morning, and I'm actually going to do a post about it, another one of my questioning thoughts posts. But I I I had this acronym in my mind, um, um, and oh God, what is the acronym again? I must be sleepy. CORE, Cult of Racism Everywhere. That's it. CORE, Cult of Racism Anywhere. And so I'm a racial talk averse person. I'm allergic to racial talk. I hate it. I think it's stupid. I don't think that the people who talk about it or take it seriously are stupid at all, but I think that it's something that's sort of like foisted upon us, and we could be using our attention better, our resources, all of that. So I don't know, like in the sense, I mean, it's stupid to me. I think it's stupid. So anyway, it occurred to me, I was like, why is racism everywhere? Why is white supremacy, racism everywhere, racism in my hair? Racism can explain absolutely everything that's going on in the world, and there are no other, just all distills down to racism. And then there is, what's her name? Robin DiAngelo with her best selling book, White Fragility. And there's, cultural Marxism and what is it called? It's like this deconstructive theory. I really should have taken notes for myself. Anyway, the gist of it is that it feels absurd to me that in this day and age, racism explains everything away, and I feel like we're regressing rapidly, faster and faster with every passing day, and a lot of it's got to do with the media. A lot of it's got to do with what's being taught in institutions like critical race theory, for example, which I think is extremely destructive to everybody, Black people especially. Um, it's in this day and age, the conversation for values, morals, principles, ethics seems to have all but disappeared, you know? And it's like there is no conversation for just how to be a regular good person. Everything comes down to race, and then there's race and gender and all of that. But like with critical race theory, for example, what it does is it really lowers the bar for Black people. And the gist of it is that, we need help. We always have. We always will. We are victims. We always will be. We need a white savior. We need special preferential treatment wherever we go. The standards for moral behavior are lower for Black people, so we can get away with some pretty obnoxious behavior, sometimes even murder, depending on who we murder. Um, we can get away with being, just being very obnoxious and immature and saying whatever we want to say and saying really like horrible things about other groups of people, but it's okay because we're Black, we can do that. And I think that at the end, this critical race theory really, in the name of dismantling white supremacy, is actually putting more and more bricks onto white supremacy and digging the foundation even deeper and installing more cellars and basements and all of that. It's just strengthening white supremacy, because why on earth are we held to like this, if this is the highest standard of humanity, we're all the way down there at the very bottom. And for some reason, because we Black people are getting all of this attention and all of this money thrown at us, and there are movies for us, and now the Black woman is the one on the standard of beauty, and all of this, where there's so much that we're missing because we're just intoxicated with this attention that we're getting. And in the meantime, the conversation for Black history, real proper Black heroes who built institutions, who invented things, who were business people, entrepreneurs, philanthropists, educators. Um, those people, it's almost as if they don't exist anymore. And the narrative is one of Black victimhood. And this is like so incredibly concerning to me. I don't see enough, I see some people talking about it, but it seems like it's usually the same people who are always talking about it, and they've been talking about it for decades now. And for some reason, it's not getting, well, let's just say the commercial forces are so much stronger, more vocal. They're like Coca-Cola. You know how Coca-Cola is all over the world. There's not, even the most so-called primitive people love Coca-Cola. It's ubiquitous, And I don't know what to do about it other than just put my thoughts out there. So, the so first of all, I want to make it very clear that I'm separating the people who believe in the ideology from the people who created the ideology, who are also the people who are marketing the ideology, right? So if you're a Black person and you've bought into this ideology, you're not a bad person. I don't look down on you. I don't mock you. I don't think you're stupid. I can understand why you bought into the ideology. But I'm also saying that I think right now is the time to kind of step back from it and take a look at the long road, right? Our society has conditioned everybody, and our people especially, to basically live hand to mouth and to seek immediate gratification, and not to like worry too much about what's going to happen in the future. So like on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're kind of like we're down there in survival. And so whatever in the moment gives us, a dopamine hit, we're going to take it. Hi, Diana. Thank you for listening. So, so this is the conditioning that we have, and we're not educated or taught. And then also we're so far removed from the older generations who carried this wisdom. We're so far removed now. And then of course society has this attitude towards old people that when they're not productive or pretty anymore, just, like hide them away. But anyway, the conversation for what are our individual legacies doesn't exist, it seems. I know that there are pockets where it exists, but I'm dismayed that as a society overall, it doesn't exist at all. So right now, we're kind of like inebriated, we're drunk on Abu Bakr, hi, thank you, listening from Lesotho. Dumela Ntate. Dumela Buti Abu Bakr. But anyway, so right now it feels really, really good to get this attention, to finally have like really beautiful Black women on the cover of magazines and just showing our beauty and who we really are. And that's really, really wonderful. But at the same time, it's sort of like a Trojan horse, where we're given a gift, and we're so focused on this gift, on the material aspects of the gift, where we're not paying attention to the spiritual ramifications of that gift. Like our attention is diverted because we are being coddled, we're being pampered, we're being catered to. But it's sort of like these words have poison, but there's so much sugar that we're taking the poison in, and the poison is this narrative that we Black people are helpless and we need a savior, that we come from slaves. And that's not, there's nothing wrong with being descendants of slaves, but the way it's framed is very harmful to us. Oh, Kialeboha Abuti. um, anyway, my Sesotho is like, so so it's this narrative is, it's a negative one about slavery. Like I remember when I first, like when I was coming, I was younger and I was here in school in the States, and then the Black kids would say things to each other like, you know, you look like a slave, ha ha ha. And instead of having this mindset that, wow, your ancestors survived this and here you are now. Um, and even to think about what our ancestors went through in a positive light, instead of thinking about it with, you know, anger, we can think about it with like, man, the obstacles that they overcame, what can we learn from them about, you know, love and community, mental toughness, creativity, being able to laugh off the most dire situations and circumstances. So I've been around for a while, and I remember in the 70s, so we were living in Lesotho, but my mother subscribed to like Ebony Junior magazine. And there were all of these really positive stories about being Black. They were very uplifting and very forward thinking. And I feel like we're, there's another revolution going on, but it seems like we are not. Oh, recorded version. I'm going to put this onto my YouTube channel, and then I guess, well, it'll be an MP4, I guess. I can send it to you. Um, so the conversation was so powerful and uplifting, and now the conversation is the forces that control Black Lives Matter. The money doesn't, it's not grassroots anymore. It doesn't come from us. Um, if I were to say right now that George Soros is heavily invested in it and he's put a lot of money in these different NGOs all over the country and the world, well, some people might say that I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. It's like, who knows week to week what you say? One week it's fine, the next week it's a conspiracy theory. Oh, it's like so much to keep up with. But in any case, we know that the money that is being pumped into Black Lives Matter does not come from Black people. If we take the time and do our research, we understand that the people who are leading this movement are students of cultural Marxism, which is so ironic because, you know, in the name of dismantling white supremacy, you're actually studying under a white man who's white supremacist. Yeah, that's something else. Um, but there's so many things. Okay, getting back to core. So the cult of racism everywhere basically says that everything in life can be explained through a racist lens. And everything has got to do with white supremacy, like absolutely everything. Now, what this does, whether it's true or not, I don't really care. I'm concerned with the hearts and the minds of individuals, and it doesn't matter what color they are. Because this narrative basically says that if you're Black, you should think a certain way and behave in a certain way. If you're white, if you're Hispanic, if you're Asian, I'll give you an example of how absurd this is. Now, in Florida, a lot of Hispanic people voted for Trump because there are many, many Cubans in Florida, right? They were Cubans and then they became American citizens, but they fled Castro, they fled socialism and communism. And they know it all too well. So they vote for Trump because they see the Republican Party as the last bastion of true American leadership, true American thought. That's the only place where the American documents actually are alive. And I'm talking about the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, right? So Cubans, Venezuelans, um, people who come from those countries are like, okay, this where the Democrats are going is we've been on that road and we're not having it. Now there is talk that Cubans are not Hispanics. All of a sudden, with this election, Cubans are no longer Hispanics. They're something else, but they're not Hispanics because true Hispanics vote Democrat every time. That's what they're supposed to do. Another interesting thing I've observed is that I've seen some posts, and I've read a few articles because I'm paying attention to both the right and the left all the time. Believe me, I mean, I keep it balanced. And sometimes I feel kind of schizophrenic because it's like, oh, anyway. Um, where was I? Oh my God. I'm just bouncing all over the place. It had to do with, okay, Cubans are not Hispanics. Oh yeah, so these posts and articles are basically describing Cubans in the most patronizing ways, right? I'm reading these articles and some of them are actually by Black people, but I feel as if I'm reading an article by a white anthropologist, maybe in the 1890s, describing the natives. And the natives are very simple-minded people. They don't really know what they're doing. They're attracted to machismo and strong men. They're very simple people. And that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Abu Bakr said, I remember us growing up together at prep school. This is in Maseru, Lesotho. As children, we never knew racism as it is today. We lived a very mixed life, but I was never taken as Masutu because my name was never Sesotho. That's a whole nother, I don't know, that's a whole nother Pandora's box. Yeah, like that's something to talk about. That's really something to talk about. Yeah, because in Sotho culture, you are what your father is. So it doesn't matter. You could grow up in Lesotho. Your dad is like English and your mom is Mosotho. You're considered to be English. But then flip it, you're considered to be Mosotho because you are the nationality of your father. So it's not so much race, it's more like that's just Lesotho law. And that can make, yeah, we have to talk about that. But yeah, it's like reading these articles put me back to like over, was it 200 years ago? Whatever. My math is not really good right now, but 120 years ago, 120. Where you had these old white anthropologists who, trekked the Amazon, or they were, in the Kalahari or wherever, and, observing the natives, or like the way white guys way back then would describe the Native Americans, and oh, they're such simple people, they're so simple-minded, they're so, they don't understand the complexities. I mean, literally, I read a post where somebody actually screenshotted it. Let me see if I can read it right now. This is something. But I quite a while ago, I did a post, and it was called, "Is it white supremacy or really tech supremacy?" Because somehow, whenever we get technology that is, more advanced than the people around us, we develop these God complexes. So it's not a white problem; it's really a human problem. No, that's not the screenshot. Oh, it's on my phone. Hold on a second. This is so crazy. Oh yeah, Okay, so this is a conversation about the Cubans who voted for Trump in Florida, but because they did that, now all Cubans are no longer Hispanics. Didn't Hispanic mean just Spanish speaking? Anyway, I'm not going to say this person's name, but they said, not at all shocking, most foreign born, unless highly enlightened, gravitate to the strong arm leaders. It's what they know. Biden looks like a wimp. They really don't get the minutiae of the US system. Biden is finesse and intelligence and the true negotiator. Most people don't even know what that is. They hear loud words and boasts and accusations and think that person must be the best. Not at all shocking, just depressing. Wow, wow, wow. Wow. And this person who wrote this is a black man. Yeah, he's a black man. And this is what he wrote about Cubans who are no longer Hispanics. Like they're just simple minded, moronic, children who cannot understand the complexities and the nuances of life and governance and all of that because they're just too simple minded. So here we have a very, what we call in this day and age, a white supremacist attitude from a black man to Hispanic people, right? But then we black people, I wouldn't be surprised if this very black man is one who's always talking about equity and Black Lives Matter and reparations and all of that. You see what I'm saying? So this problem that we have of arrogance and assuming people are stupid because they don't see our worldview is a problem of technology. It's a problem of getting a higher education. It's got nothing to do with race. That's basically my point. And it's extremely, extremely dismissive. The arrogance is just off the charts, and he's got a God complex. And every one of us is totally capable of it. Maybe even I have a God complex right now because I'm criticizing it. Who knows? Somebody could look at me and go, wow, she's so arrogant. She's got a God complex. But anyway, back to God and complexes and cults. If you're a black person today and you don't vote blue and you don't support Biden or Harris, and you think that the Democratic Party has gone full on socialist because you've combed through their platform and you see nothing in it, none of the seeds or the germ of what's made the United States what it is, and all you see is language that's very socialistic, Marxist, communistic, and then you go, no. Then you're called all sorts of filthy names. And so the very black people who are working so hard to dismantle white supremacy are the very same people who have a white supremacist attitude towards you, because a definition of racism is categorizing people by race and saying, well, you're this type of person, so this is how you think, feel, and behave, and that's how you're supposed to be. And if you don't, then there's something wrong with you. I hope that I'm, being clear about that. So I just want to share my thoughts, because it's like, in some religions, if you don't stand in line, your punishment is shunning, or it's excommunication, or you're an infidel, or in the case of core cult of racism everywhere, then you're canceled, right? And you're called, was coon, bootlicker, Uncle Tom, house Negro, house N, this and that, right? And the emotions, and this has got a lot to do with programming, not just from the news media, but also the media, television, film, TV shows over decades now. Well, actually, since the beginning of film, which is what the early 1900s. And then even before then, it was in publications, magazines, newspapers, all of that. It just hasn't ended at all. And it seems that, you know, often Black people, we're the ones who are most keen to keep this system going. Um, yeah. Yeah, okay. Abu Bakr said, I've lived and worked in South Africa. I was in very high levels in the banking industry. I know racism. Banking was an elite area. With my MBA, I challenged a lot of white privilege. Good on you. I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you did that. Because, so in this talk, I'm not saying that racism and white supremacy don't exist. They do. Racism does exist. Um, what I'm talking about is how when we Black people have an opportunity to address racism, but then also not collapse our self-worth with racism, that's what we need to do. So for instance, yes, yeah, I want to partner with you and have this discussion, and maybe we can do like a Zoom call and whatever, and schedule it for sure. So what I'm talking about, so racism is out there, but I think it's important for us to learn and teach ourselves and each other how to not internalize the racism, right? Because yeah, the racism is out there. We internalize it, and then we wind up, because we're unhealed, perpetuating it onto our own. And then we're just like stuck in this like psychological loop. And then we have outside actors who have their own economic interests on us, that are taking our insecurities, our fears, the things that we're not healed from, and basically commodifying our pain and selling it back to us. And then our children grow up in this framework of, Black people, standards are lower for Black people, right? How do I say it? It's funny because when I'm talking, I have these like little sparks in my brain. It's like, talk about this, talk about that. What about that? And I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then I'm like, oh, I don't remember anything. So yeah, yes, racism exists. There is, I don't believe in institutionalized racism, like we don't have those segregation, Jim Crow, apartheid laws anymore. But then we're dealing with like internalized racism and bias as well. And I'll tell you, like the worst racism I've ever experienced in my life has always come from Black people. So, and they've internalized the racism, and then I'm a little bit different, and then, I become the punching bag. I mean, when I was younger, literally, but these days, metaphorically, nobody said anything terrible to me. I'm speaking my mind, but it's like we have to learn how to, and this is for white people too, because it's like whatever, you're being manipulated as well, right? So the manipulation is you're supposed to feel scared and guilty all the time. But then what that winds up doing is creating a lot of resentment towards us. So maybe in the beginning, you weren't thinking racist thoughts, but now with all of these new trainings, then you're like forced to, or it's like, hey, why are Black people being held to like this really, really low standard? Do you know what I mean? Like, why can, aren't we all humans over here? And then for Black people too, it's like we are being indoctrinated into simultaneously, it's sort of like this double thing where I will. Oh, Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist. I haven't read that book yet. I want to. I do want to read that book. I know that there's a lot of criticism towards, what is it, Ibrahim Kendi? I forgot his first name, but there's been criticism of him because he pushes, like, to me it sounds like he is he's a core person where, it's like racism is everything, the cult of racism is everywhere. And my stance is, even if it is everywhere, we cannot go through life as if it's everywhere. If that makes any sense. Like, even if it is everywhere, we have to protect ourselves from it and not internalize it, because everything starts within in our internal environment. And then we go out and we make decisions and we decide who we talk to and who we don't talk to, or when to stand up for ourselves and when to cower. And if we have, hi Jim, welcome. Oh, Ibram, okay, not Ibrahim, okay, thank you. If our internal environment is one where we believe ourselves to be victims, or we believe ourselves to not be capable of being over here, then of course we're naturally going to censor ourselves, and so let's see, his earlier stamps from the beginning, Lace's intellectual funding. Okay, thank you. I got to read that book. I have to. I will. It's on my, I've already decided before this that I was going to read it. So that's the thing. I mean, we're capable. I mean, all people, I personally don't walk around saying, I'm a Black woman in America. I'm a Black woman in America, because then I create this like force field around me. Because what does it mean to be a Black woman in America? Oh, well, Black women in America, they're hated, they're downtrodden. People, people punch at them. They're treated badly in the workplace and da 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 da. And I'm like, oh, it's like, I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel free. And so even if I come into an environment where white people are very hostile towards me, I'm not going to allow that to affect myself, internally, because that's just kind of giving my power away, or giving them permission to make me feel bad. And also, I take the long view. Well, if white people are prejudiced against Black people, well, there are reasons why. Just like if Black people, there are reasons why. Hispanics, there are reasons why. A lot of it's got to do with the way history is taught. A lot of it's got to do with, most of it's got to do with the media. I think these days, some of it's got to do with conversations at home or in the community, but most of it's really got to do with the media. It's got to do with hip hop. It's got to do with the types of movies that are put out. So first of all, I don't take it personally if somebody dislikes me just because of what I look like. And I also don't take the negative narrative of Black people personally either. I just try not to take anything personally, because it's a massive drain. It's a massive drain. So there's, I don't know, like, earlier stuff in the beginning. Let me see. If anybody wants to make any other comments, I can talk about what you're saying. But yeah, I remember being young and, growing up in Lesotho in a very international community, and kids from all over the world, and we were curious about each other's cultures and spent time in each other's houses. And people had different food, of course, different foods, but also different dining traditions, like, not only how food was made, but how food was eaten and enjoyed. And then there was the music and the culture and all of that. And I felt as if, the world was becoming better. And I feel like in the past several years, we're just being like constantly reminded, you're different, stay over here, they're over there, stay, those people, they hate you. And I'm like, I don't think so, let me find out. And I'm like, no, they don't hate me. We just have different cultures. I got to tell you something funny. I guess it was a couple of months ago. I was with, so there were three of us, Black and a white woman. and we go to New Braunfels. It's like 45 minutes south of Austin. We decide to go tubing down the river. And we're in the middle of town, and there's this roundabout. And at the roundabout, there's this big Trump rally, you know, and like, hey, and everyone's, hey, da 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 da. And we stopped and talked to people, and they were talking about how many of our rights since coronavirus have been taken away. And they feel like Trump is the only one who is defending our freedoms and our civil liberties. Well, New Braunfels is like, I think, majority white, and then the next population there is Hispanic, and they're just a smattering of Black people there. But everybody was super friendly. They were playing hip hop music. It was like multi-generational families. Everybody's, you know, enjoying some good, clean hip hop. And so we say hi, and my friend, you know, interviews a couple of people, and we're like, wow, that was different. That was kind of fun. Then we drive down, we go to the river, and we had to go buy our tubes because of coronavirus. So we bought our tubes, and we're pumping them up. And to the left of us are some, like, I don't know, good old boys, like real Southern guys. And you look at them and you think, they should be listening to country music, but they're listening to Afro beats. Oh my gosh. So they're listening to Afro beats and, you know, barbecuing. And we're like, hey, how are you doing? Fine, fine, you know. Then we go to the river and we're getting into our tubes. And there's another group of white people who are very country people. And they're talking about how they had moved from Austin to New Braunfels because it's like New Braunfels is, well, first of all, it's a very German town. I don't know how many people know this, but like Central Texas is, oh yeah, Maseru's son in the pool. I know, I remember. Um, yeah. Oh, Abu Bakr said, I would like to have a joint discussion with you and other guests. I have a very unique South African perspective, but also have a non-racial Lesotho perspective. I'm also mixed as my dad was Muslim and my mom was Sotho. You know, we're cousins. I think your dad, no, your mom and my dad are first or second cousins. I don't know what that makes us. But yeah, it's like we had so much fun in Lesotho, my goodness. But anyway, and I remember you and your sisters and all that. We had so much fun. But anyway, what I'm saying is we're getting in, and so these guys, they're like country, like everybody there is Republican, you know, conservative people. And just, you know, we just make small talk, and they're talking about how much they like New Braunfels, and it's, you know, it's a much slower pace of life, and they love getting on the river, and just super friendly. So we get in, we float, we go down a little bit. To our right, there's a party of Hispanic people. They're all like Mexican Americans, and they're listening to some hip hop. So we're bouncing along, like, hey, 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 you know, like, beers, whatever. We go down a little bit farther, and there's another group of people. They're mostly white, and they're listening to reggae. We're like, hey, hey, and we go down a little bit further, and there's a group of Hispanic people, and they're listening to rock, and we're singing along. And I'm like, that's America, you know. The politics is theater. It's pure theater. What the news tells us about race relationships is BS. How can we, in a country of 330 to 350 million people, get fixated on a handful of cases, and then there are many white people who are killed every day, unarmed, killed by police, but we don't know about them? And I'm not diminishing the fact that people were killed by police. No, 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 not at all. But what I'm saying is if the media would just report the news factually, and if they wouldn't cherry pick what to report, and we wouldn't be where we are right now. Let me just say that. And also the narrative from the media is that, you know, people vote for Trump because they're white supremacists. No, people vote for Trump because he promised to bring their jobs back. And he did. And that's why they love him. He promised to defend the Constitution, and he is, and that's why they love him. It's got nothing to do with race. I'm thinking about how different the world would be if we didn't have this core cult of racism everywhere narrative. And I know that I'm running the risk of being misunderstood in what I'm saying, but I'm willing to take the risk. Because for me, artificial intelligence has basically taken over our human consciousness, and I think it happened a few years ago. And basically, this is a discussion that we need to have, because whatever our biases and our prejudices have been for a very long time, the algorithms, artificial intelligence, the model for how news agencies make their money, which is a commercial model, which is an advertising model, the fact that we human beings tend to fixate on trauma and then we forget good things that happen, that's just our human nature. Like all of these things combined are like just basically on steroids with this artificial intelligence. And the best way to break that and just be free. I mean, like I'll say, I know there's a lot going on in the world, and I know I'm expected to think and feel in very particular ways, but I just don't because I've chosen not to. And I'm free. I'm free. I have whatever the outcome of the election is, I accept it. And I'll just keep talking and trying to pass on really good information, because I am very concerned about where the Democratic Party is, and that not enough Democrats are actually reading through their platform. Because if more did, I think that they would just be really shocked and horrified, honestly. So if the Harris-Biden ticket wins, I hope that Democrats in the party just pay a little bit more attention and try to get their Constitution back onto their platform and all of the good things that come out of the Constitution. And we all have to make more of an effort to bridge the divide, like just let go of passing on negative information, because most of the negative information isn't true, or yeah, it's kind of spun a little bit. Anyway, I've spoken for a long time. I'm gonna get off now. Bye. Yeah, okay, yes, all right, I'm gonna get off now. I'm going to post this video to my YouTube channel, and I will just keep making more videos, and I am gonna do a very long post about this, cult of racism is everywhere. I find it to be holding us back in many, many ways, and all races holding us back. All right, thank you for joining me. Bye.